G'day from the beautiful lobby bar here at the Kempinski Hotel in Budapest, the day after Daniel Ricciardo's comeback race. In this video, I'm going to share with you a lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff that you would not have seen on television or perhaps on social media. When? In 8 seconds' time. What a lovely treat to see Daniel Ricciardo back on the grid for Sunday's race here at the Hungaroring. Daniel is immensely popular. If you have a look at Instagram, it's a pretty good gauge. There are only 3 drivers with more followers than him, and they are Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton. I imagine most of Daniel's 8.4 million followers were looking in very keenly to see how he went on Sunday. And as you know, the start wasn't the best. He was relegated back to last at turn 1, but he did fight back through the field to end up 13th, even passing his teammate Yuki Tsunoda in the process. Of course, we all know that Daniel's return was a bit of a surprise, replacing Nick De Vries. But let's go back to Thursday and I'll give you a rundown of what I saw when I came into the track very early because I wanted to catch his arrival. I first of all on the Wednesday though went out and took these pictures of Daniel's garage. This was my biggest post of the weekend. In fact, I think it was probably in my top 15 posts ever. I did notice that they were still running Nick pics on the screens at the back of the garage with this pic from the British GP. At the time of taking these shots, though, I didn't see any of the number 3 on the car. In fact, I couldn't even find a nose cone for his car. That wasn't visible until the Thursday afternoon. So day 1, which is Thursday for us, Media Day, Daniel was the first driver to arrive. To be precise, at 9:26 a.m. He parked his Honda Civic Type R, and yes, he'll be driving those cars a lot this year, obviously, because that's what the AlphaTauri drivers normally drive. He then walked underneath the tunnel, up the stairs and into the paddock, and it's a walk of about 30 metres from where they come up the stairs to the Red Bull Energy Station. So what was he wearing? Well, you can see for yourself. His own label, Enchante. Shorts, t-shirt, a Gucci backpack, which he carries often to races. And who did he arrive with? It was Blake Friend, his brand manager. Interestingly for me, no trainer. I was expecting to see Stuart Smith. Who's Stuart Smith? Well, he's the trainer that worked with Daniel many years ago, also worked with Daniil Kvyat. And I believe Stuart was with Daniel in the post-British GP testing out at Silverstone. So at 9:26 on a Thursday, there's very few media in the paddock, so I had that pretty much to myself along with a video cameraman. But in the background, you can see a Netflix audio guy. They were very much onto the story, and it will play a huge part in one of the episodes, if not a couple, next year. And was Heidi Berger with him over the weekend? Well, we didn't see her at the track. The only other 2 that I saw were Nick and Roman from CAA, which is Daniel's management company, and they were there on all 4 days. Next up on the agenda for Daniel was a seat fitting out in the garage. Once again, still can't see the nose cone with the number 3 on it. It was probably a 10-minute or so commitment, and then it was back to the energy station on a scooter. And I thought he might ride that scooter the whole weekend because there's a distance of some 250 metres from the Red Bull Energy Station to the garage. But I think that was the only time he rode that scooter, and thankfully for us, he had his race suit on, so he looked great. And of course, as he went away from me, I could see the number 3 on his back. Next up for Daniel, I think he headed off to do some TV stuff, and I'm going to take a punt here that it was the play-ons for the actual F1 telecast. And then at noon, he held a press conference inside the energy station. Now, this was a big press conference. Now, as photographers, we're not allowed in there, but certainly we could see, because 2 of the windows were open to the energy station, that there was a large crowd of reporters hanging on every word. He had a media guy from Red Bull with him, and there was a large contingent of media outside photographing what was going on inside. After that, he came out of the energy station and he was met down the bottom by Rachel Brooks from Sky, and she spent probably a good 5 or 10 minutes chatting with him, and pretty much the questions were around his return. Well, how was he going to approach it? And the gist of the answers were 1 race at a time, he's happy to be back, it's going to take him a little while to perhaps get up to peak, but I think pretty much everybody realises he's not going to come straight out and blitz the field if he's going to do that at all. And while he was doing that interview with a long lens, I managed to get a close-up of this, a bracelet promoting his clothing brand. A couple of hours later, it was more questions from the media up in the press conference room, where he and the only other Australian driver, Oscar Piastri, were on the couch. A lot of the questions were aimed at Daniel about the return, and I think when you look at it, McLaren copped a lot of hate when they let Daniel go. And now AlphaTauri cop a fair bit of hate too for letting Nick go. But in time, that sort of tends to be water under the bridge, and the F1 world just goes on. What I did appreciate, though, from Tom Clarkson was him asking the question about his trainer, because Michael Italiano had been with Daniel for a heck of a long time. At the end of the season, when Daniel obviously wasn't going to get the gig this year, Michael ended up going with Yuki Tsunoda. And the irony, of course, now is that he's working for Daniel's teammate. Well, as we know, they're not really teammates, they're team competitors. And there was much chat as to whether or not Michael would jump ship and go back to Daniel. Well, Daniel explained in that press conference that he was pretty much a lone wolf this year. He'd done all of his training on his own since he'd left McLaren, but he would be taking Pirou Salmela. Now, Pirou is a lovely fella. You might have seen the video I did where I trained with him in Bahrain going back, a year and a half ago now. He trained Nick De Vries. He's employed by AlphaTauri. So they've obviously said, right, well, you can be Daniel's, technically not trainer, more of a PA organiser, someone who gets Daniel's gear ready, and you can see him in the background here on the track on Sunday before the race, just making sure the helmet's there, the gloves, the drink, all that sort of stuff. But not taking a traditional training role. So that leaves us with two drivers in the paddock without a traditional trainer, because Lewis Hamilton has not effectively replaced Angela Cullen with someone at the track. So we're still on Thursday, and at the end of the day, Daniel heads off on a track ride, riding this Basso bike with his own number 3 on it. Let's jump to Friday now. He was in early once again, wearing an AlphaTauri top. Sunnies wise, he had a different pair on than the day prior, and I couldn't find any label on them. Maybe you know what he was wearing. First session on Friday was wet, some great pictures in the rain, and the second session in the afternoon was dry. He didn't exactly set the world on fire, but I don't think many people expected him to. And then his last commitment on Friday was the driver's briefing. On Saturday, he arrived at 10 a.m. The paddock was a lot busier. He made his way to the energy station, and then before FP3, he took off for the long walk to the garage, and my gosh, it was tough getting a clean shot of the driver. Thankfully, that walk is long, 250 odd metres, and the first 200, he was just getting hammered by selfie taker after selfie taker, and he was very good with them. He gave them all a little bit of time, but I'll give you a tip here. If you ever want a selfie, do not expect the driver to stop. You've got to walk and shoot. It just makes me laugh when I see people thinking that a driver on his way to a session is going to stop for them. I walked with him the whole length of the paddock and was lucky to get these shots at the end with nobody around. And then Saturday afternoon brought quali. I thought he might struggle, but it wasn't the case. Ended up 13th. Which was a fair effort, and a couple of places in front of Yuki. I went to the back of the FIA garage and caught these pictures of him coming out smiling. It should be known too that he spent a good 5 minutes inside that FIA garage. Normally you wouldn't be able to see in there, but you could get a rough idea with the reflection. He took off his fireproof top, towed himself down, put on an AlphaTauri shirt, and then ended up coming out to face the media. On the way, being greeted by Fabiano, who does the PR for AlphaTauri. Next up, race day. Daniel in around 10 a.m. went through the swipes, and look at his pass photo here. I figure this is some years old. He's wearing a white collared shirt, and I gather a tie and a jacket. Then it was off to the energy station. He was wearing some Enchante shorts because it was warm, and an AlphaTauri shirt. Headed off into there, was pretty much holed away for most of the morning until the driver's parade, where he joined the other 19 guys on board a bus. And then it was time to get in the car for his first race with AlphaTauri in many years. And who is his race engineer? That's Pierre Hamlin, who worked with Nick De Vries, and prior to that with Pierre Gasly. Now, I was positioned at turn 2 for the start, so I didn't get to see all the shenanigans that went on at turn 1. But as the field passed me, I was acutely aware that he was last. I thought, what the hell has gone on there? It wasn't until I got back late last night and had a look at the vision. He got cleaned up and relegated back to last, but a great effort getting back to 13th. After the race, I didn't see much of him. I was out the front shooting Lando Norris's incredible second place and another win for Max. But later on in the evening, I did see him come back from the garage, and he was sprinting down that paddock because he wasn't at all interested in stopping for anyone. He wanted to get back there, and a short time later, he left and gave us a wave as he did so. So would he have been happy with his performance on the weekend? Well, I'm going to say yes. And I think the general F1 population thought that he was going to take some races to get back into it. And of course, he's driving a car that is nothing like the Red Bull that he shone in during the testing after Silverstone. But I think AlphaTauri, I think Red Bull, and he will be very happy with the way he went. Certainly the media lapped it up because it was such a great story. And a couple of you said on my Instagram page, oh, you just love Daniel Ricciardo. Yeah, I like Daniel. He's a great guy. But I'm a businessman. I put up what you want to see, and it was very clear that there was a huge appetite for Daniel content on the weekend. At this stage, I'm going to suggest you go to prostarpics.com and search Daniel's name if you're a fan, and see all of my pictures of him. You'll find on my kimellman.com website F1 photo books, wall art, signed prints by drivers and team principals, plus merchandise, and for my best images live from the track. And during the week, go to Instagram and search at Kim Illman. Oh yes, I'm on Threads now too, and TikTok, and Twitter, and Facebook. Thanks for watching, and stay passionate. Clothing-wise, the Alpha Tauri top, which the drivers are pretty much... Hello, James. You want to be in my video? This is James from
Hello, fans.
Alpha Alpine.
It's a bit early.